folks. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. Happy Monday to everybody out there watching. As always, we can't do the program without you watching, and so you're a vital part of this entire operation. You found the Millstone Report. My name is Paul Harrell. We have a great show for you. I don't know what you were doing on your Lord's Day, but I know I know that after church, I decided to hop on Twitter. I tried to stay off. I certainly don't do a lot of tweeting, hardly ever actually post anything on Sunday. But I glanced at Twitter and, noticed that the world was on fire and that we were one step closer to World War III because NATO and Ukraine and Russia, it was just absolutely incredible what happened over the weekend. And so we're going to cover a little bit of that for you now. But I think basically what we can say about it is that the peace talks that are supposed to, or I guess they have commenced in Istanbul, Turkey, are pretty much meaningless at this point. I feel like they have been sabotaged, and I don't expect a lot of resolution out of this at all. I don't know. Maybe you think it'll be different. Maybe there'll be some breakthrough, but we talked about that Martin Armstrong article a couple of weeks ago, and the Martin Armstrong article said that essentially Europe is contracting, their economies are contracting, and they very much need a war with Russia in order to keep their corrupt financial system afloat. And so peace, certainly not good for Zelensky. Zelensky will lose power if there's an actual peace, and they have to once again call elections in Ukraine. And then no war, according to some reports and takes, not good for Europe. Not good for Europe at all, especially if the money laundering operation stops. We've seen how people have reacted to that when we think about USAID and all of that money drying up. But over at the Last Refuge, I think they have a good take for what happened here. Ukraine carries out widespread suicide mission attacks in Russia. I'm sure you've heard about this by now. The basic outline that took place, according to Sundance, is a little clearer now. It was called Operation Spiderweb. Ukraine counterintelligence operatives staged a series of semi-trucks near 5 strategic air bases deep inside Russia. The trucks were loaded with explosive drones, and the drones came out and attacked the bases. Most of the truck drivers and drone operators were captured by the Russian military. It was a suicide mission. Now, that's what the Russian media is reporting, that they have captured a lot of these people that were driving the trucks in. Now, factually, because there's a lot of different numbers out there, how many of Russia's airplanes that are responsible, to be there on the tarmac as a nuclear deterrent, they have to be observable as part of nuclear arms treaties. How many of the planes actually did they lose? That number seems to be kind of fluid right now. But factually, I agree with Sundance here when he says it was a counterintelligence success. Or a failure. If you're Russians, it was a complete failure. Actually, a pretty scandalous thing if you think about it. A well-coordinated, significant operation. Zelensky's out there bragging about it. Zelensky's out there saying, that this took a year and a half, 18 months to plan. And then if you go over here, we find the familiar face. Eric Daugherty reminding us that it's just a coincidence that Senator Lindsey Graham is celebrating the Ukraine assault on Russia today, right after he met with Zelensky. Obviously, also you had Richard Blumenthal, Democrat senator over there as well. Eric Daugherty saying he is emboldening Zelensky. Peace talks are tomorrow in Istanbul. So here's Lindsey Graham, the ever-resourceful Ukraine. The ever-resourceful Ukraine. As if this is a Ukraine-only attack. As if Ukraine could not do anything if it wasn't for the West and NATO, and of course the United States is NATO. I think at this point, in the middle of the first year of Donald Trump's presidency, and I know he wants to be the president of peace. That's one of the reasons I voted for him. I hope he can figure his way throughout all this mess, although it does appear he's being kept in the dark on Ukraine issues. But I think the biggest blunder is whoever he listened to on Ukraine from day one, he should have pulled all resources. The war would be over, in my opinion, today, had we just quit supporting Ukraine from day one. And instead, this is going to just continue going, and we're going to continue to use the Ukrainian people as expendable assets, and this proxy war continues. But anyway, Lindsey Graham, the ever-resourceful Ukraine, used creative drone warfare tactics to successfully attack Russian bombers. Like, he's trying to put out that this is some sort of like, Star Wars rebellion. They were flying by the seat of their pants. No, this was NATO. You could not do this type, from what I can tell. The precision, the technology. There's talk that these drones were AI powered. That they were programmed by AI, and AI was the one. This is something. This is from what I can tell, state of the art technology. And so Lindsey Graham is out there cheerleading all of this. Also, people like Mark Levin. Congratulations to our Ukrainian friends, cheering, bringing this country to the brink, because the world to the brink, really, because Russia is going to respond here. That much I know. Russia is going to respond. We don't know what they're going to do now. DC Dranos, let me get this straight. Lindsey Graham is visiting with Zelensky the day before Ukraine launches a sophisticated drone strike deep inside Russia that destroys multiple bombers. And all of this happens the day before peace talks were supposed to commence in Istanbul. It looks like Lindsey Graham and NATO are corrupt warmongers trying to turn this into World War III while Trump fights for world peace. Might be the time to investigate Lindsey Graham for his actions making the war worse. And then here is some, this is one of the videos of the, so apparently after the drones launched, now again, I don't know what I'm seeing here, if it's real or not, but apparently, or at least the description, I believe the video is accurate. Apparently after the drones take off, then there's a self-destruct mechanism, but I don't know if that's the case or not. Again, here's Lindsey Graham a few days ago.
We saw credible evidence of a summer, early fall invasion, a new offensive by Putin. He's playing the game at the peace table. He's preparing for more war. And I think the Senate is fed up with Putin. The American people see Putin as unreasonable. They see Ukraine is trying. President Trump has made that distinction real. So the Senate and the House of Representatives in the next 2 weeks will be moving forward with a sanction bill that's bone-crushing.
So, here's the thing on this. Regardless of whether or not the drone attack would have happened, it has been the Trump administration's stated goal, Marco Rubio's stated goal, to normalize relations with Russia. That's a fact. So whether or not he was over there egging the drone strike on, which I probably think he was, the bottom line is he's still going against the idea that we would normalize relations with Russia, and Trump wants to trade with him, and so on and so forth. So it's really incredible. So I want to turn now and actually talk to somebody who knows firsthand, who's had to suffer through Lindsey Graham far more than people who are not South Carolinians. I'm talking about Mark Lynch. I think, do we have his audio? Yeah, here we go. We've got Mark Lynch, who is a businessman. He's also running for Senate in the great state of South Carolina, trying to retire Lindsey Graham. Mark, welcome back to the Millstone Report, sir.
Thank you for having me again, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, I don't know if your Sunday kind of shaped up like my Sunday. I got out of church, looked at the news, and I was like, oh, no, we're one step closer to World War III. Did you have a similar day yesterday?
I wasn't looking that much yesterday. We had other things going on, but last week with Lindsey Graham down there with Zelensky and all the news coming out about that, we put out a little bit of an article and a video that I didn't know Lindsey was now, our Secretary of State, because like you're referring to, Trump's headed in one direction, working towards peace talks, and he didn't show up to the meeting with Putin and Lindsey the week before, and then Lindsey goes down there the next week again, and Trump's not there, and it's like they're divided and they're headed, we've got two people going in different directions speaking for our country. So I just don't appreciate that. It doesn't seem like Lindsey is working with Trump at all like he says he is, and he's just kind of defiant and doing his own thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, and it's this movement. It doesn't matter. It seems like it doesn't matter what Donald Trump says. It doesn't matter how close we may get to peace, although I'm not really sure we've ever been that close, because the United States has continued to support, via NATO or directly sending aid. There were reports after Zelensky had that terrible appearance in the Oval Office. Ever since Zelensky disrespected the president, disrespected the vice president, there has been, by people like Lindsey Graham, an effort to try to rebuild his image with the American people, because that was really the aha moment. That was when everything, it had already, the illusion, I saw past it, I know you saw past it, but there was a lot of American people that maybe still had the Ukraine, they were Trump supporters and maybe had the Ukraine flag in their bio and social media and that sort of thing. But that was just such an ungrateful display of the arrogance, the entitlement that Zelensky held. But then you had people like Lindsey Graham, and you can just tell that, they've already chosen a side. They don't really care. They don't really care how disrespectful somebody like Zelensky would be. This is about money. Ukraine is a money laundering depot for the Uniparty. It's not just for American politicians. I actually have a theory that it keeps the European despots in control. I think a lot of that money is probably also going to rig elections, because I think the people of Europe don't really they're not really truly being represented. I think you can see that here or there. And then we look at Europe's free speech policy. They're putting people in jail for over social media posts. They really don't share the values that Americans do. So I said you had to tolerate Lindsey Graham because you actually live in South Carolina. He is your senator. He is your representative. But this has got to stop, because this is not just politics, Mark. We're talking about the Ukrainians, with the help of NATO, they went after Russia's nuclear deterrent, their nuclear readiness, and so there's going to be a massive response here, and I think that might have been the goal. They want to provoke Russia. They want to drag the United States into this war. Lindsey Graham wants to drag the United States into this war, doesn't he?
Not only that, I think he wants to keep it going because, like you said, there's money involved. Everybody knows one of Lindsey's nicknames is a warmonger. And he's been doing this the whole time. All the information's been coming out with Kash Patel and other groups that are, through Doge with Elon, that are bringing up all the money that's corrupt. And Lindsey's got his hands all over it. And a good friend of mine brought up something, with the things that are happening now, and with Trump taking over and getting back his executive powers that he never really lost, but we've had the judicial branch, stepping out of bounds over into the executive branch, trying to control the president. And so I'm glad Trump is stopping all that. But America, and Trump's in touch with what America wants. We don't want World War III. On the other hand, Lindsey knows how much his supporters donate to his campaign. I know the biggest donors in his last run, when he had to run against the Democrat Jamie Harrison in the general elections, he had millions of dollars coming in, over a total of like $106 million in his campaign to run, but the majority of it came from Boeing and Lockheed and those type of industrial military war machines that build all the military equipment. And I'm sure he's over there shoring that up again to get another contract. And also we're wondering, a lot of good people that understand all of this have said maybe it's a time to clean up and make sure things are shredded, burned, and destroyed before more Doge investigation starts on him and his cooperation with Zelensky.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but I think you're right on line. You've got to think all these possibilities, because you got to put yourself, well, what would I do if I was a corrupt politician? Well, I hadn't thought of that, shredding documents or making sure there's no there when people start sniffing around. Honestly,
Right.
That was one of the reasons why, if you remember, Trump got, impeached over the phone call, the perfect phone call with Zelensky, that, they spied on him. It wasn't really, in my opinion, I don't think they launched that because, he was asking about Joe Biden and the corruption. I think when he asked about the CrowdStrike server, the DNC server that was with this CrowdStrike company, that's where it was. He wanted to look at the server because the entire Democrat narrative falls apart if Russia wasn't the one that hacked the DNC, if it was somebody else like a Seth Rich, or I know that's still out there and very conspicuous. I've got this speaking of, corruption, this came out, and I saw that you guys tweeted something about it. That's actually how I saw it. But Senators Lindsey Graham, Richard Blumenthal, so they go over there to this trip, and they spend a whopping 800,000 taxpayer dollars, while Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal strut through Kiev. Jaw-dropping State Department records have just dropped on USA spending, revealing their extravagant hotel expenses. On June 1st, 2025, two staggering transaction service, one for a mind-blowing $403,172 and another for $411,000. What's your reaction to this, Mark Lynch?
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, if that isn't shocking enough, I mean, we're talking millions and up to billions on some of the instances, but I've never stayed at a hotel like that. I mean, I can go to a La Quinta for $129, not $402,000. That's crazy. But all of this is so unconstitutional. We were looking at some of that yesterday. We're not supposed to be giving foreign aid. That's outside of the enumerated powers of the Senate to even do. And we're breaking our own rules everywhere we turn, and we got a guy like Lindsey Graham deciding on that, and he's not working united with President Trump. He's working outside of that, just doing his own thing. So, he needs to be called home. I saw one of the things on Twitter yesterday where Roger Stone said, I'm okay if he goes over there, but I'm not okay with Lindsey coming back home. Stay over there.
Yeah, make a life. Yeah, move to Ukraine if you love it so much.
Yeah, you and Zelensky are such good friends. Stay with him.
Yeah. So here's another question. So one of the things in the wake of the reporting yesterday, initially Axios reported that the White House and Trump knew about the attack. Then they quickly edited that and said, actually, no, they didn't know. The White House has told reporters Trump didn't know. Now, this is very disturbing to me. Last week, we covered on the program that when there was a report that a bunch of drones almost took out Putin. And then Putin launches the retaliatory strikes, and Donald Trump didn't know. He was out in front of the media, and he said, he was asked the question, well, have you heard? A Russian general said that Putin was almost assassinated, and he said, I hadn't heard that. So that was disturbing. So there are these questions. I'm not the only one asking, but there are these questions, Mark Lynch, about, is the president being kept in the dark by the intel oligarchs? Obviously, there's a lot of a lot of people have very positive feelings about Tulsi Gabbard, but is she, the director of national intelligence, is she in control of these briefings? Is somebody keeping this from the president? And then you actually also have to think, who actually helped Ukraine do this? Were there intelligence agencies? Were there rogue U.S. intelligence agencies, or were there intelligence agencies in Europe that were responsible for this? Did anybody in our intelligence agencies know about this and not tell the president about it? All of these questions have got to be asked, but I think the deep state is alive and well. What do you think?
Absolutely, oligarchs, the word. There's a few people controlling all the evil in this country, and Lindsey Graham and a lot of the senators and other people in Congress that took an oath to defend our country against foreign or domestic enemies need to start doing that. America's ready to start serving lawful consequences of capital punishment to those who are committing treason in this country. And if somebody's calling those shots and the president's not included, we've got a big problem, don't we? So I need to hear from Tulsi. I think America, the people of America want to hear, and President Trump. That's who we need to trust, not some of these other people that are producing that news. We don't know what is going on at this time, but I know Trump will get around it, and we'll hear a breaking news report that'll come from his office and his staff. So we got to wait on that. But until then, I want America to know too, we've got to get out of the United Nations. That is unconstitutional for us to even be a part of something like that. The majority of the share of the United Nations is now controlled by Muslim nations, and that's not a good thing. We know who they are. We've got terrorists all inside this country controlling things, and even inside of our Congress, and we've got to get a foothold on that and get these people and arrest them and deal with it.
Yeah.
We got to start dealing with the problems that's causing it at the root level, or it'll never end. And we have that list. I think most of America could give us a list of the people that are probably involved in treason in this country. Is pretty evident when we've been watching it the last 10 years, and we can all help Trump. But a guy like me that gets in, that'll hold his oath to the office and uphold the Constitution of this great country, will fix these matters, and we'll get back to enforcing the rule of law.
I mean, I completely agree. And, as Congress struggles to pass those Doge cuts, we've talked about that. You mentioned Doge earlier and Elon Musk. There's a lot of people that think that if they're not for reducing the waste, fraud, and abuse that's been found, then the blatant waste, fraud, and abuse that's been found, that they themselves should just be investigated. I mean, their lack of wanting to do this is almost an assumption of guilt. And I know you're innocent until proven guilty, but at this point, the American people are fed up. And it's just like with the USAID money. When they cut all this USAID money, how many NGOs or these non-governmental organizations that end up tithing portions of the money they get from the government back to somebody like a Lindsey Graham or back to the child of a politician. But I will just reference this tweet, and I'll let you respond to that. Buzz Patterson saying, as we're on the precipice of World War III, we have this auto pen scandal that President Trump's been talking about. If you look at where we are right now, you look at all of the aid that we have sent to Ukraine, you got to wonder how much of this was done illegally. You mentioned treason. How much of this was treason by White House staffers or, Obama loyalists or whoever that were using the auto pen? The signature of the President of the United States, Mark Lynch, I know you know this, isn't a formality. It's a legal requirement for the executive branch to operate. And so if all of these other people were using the auto pen, which is a device supposed to be used by the president, not somebody else, and we're almost at the precipice of World War III, I mean, this is a huge story. People are saying this would be the story of the century if it turns out to be true, and I think it is. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, we got to pray for the president, because we're uncovering more and more horrible things that have happened under Joe Biden, who probably had Obama, running everything in the background. And so that's part of this deep state problem that are the enemies of this country. And what a mess to find all this out, that the auto pen procedure probably signed up and approved all these things without anybody knowing. So I know this in my own company years ago, Paul. I had a lady that wanted us to get a software where we could just sign checks, and I blocked it. We didn't do it, and I'm glad I did. I still sign everything with a blue ink pen, and we have one gate of how the bills are paid here. Everybody doesn't get to do that, right? Just me. I sign it. So I check it after they bring the stack of the bills and they need a check signed. I sign every check in our company. And it works well. Nobody has to wait. It doesn't hold anything up, but we know, because then it's on me. If I sign something, if I agree to pay it, it's on me. The employees are safeguarded against making a mistake. But this one lady was going to push this software she wanted us to get. Well, later our CPA called through the HR department, where she had kind of decided to donate a $5,000 federal tax payment to her tax IRS bill she was past due on from a previous tax return, but we caught it. So, I mean, that's why we have procedures like that. And I know Trump is all about that. He's a businessman, and he's walked into just all kind of issues. They've changed and made it easy to just keep destroying this country. And we're sending billions of dollars to all these countries, and it looks like it was approved when it wasn't.
Wow.
That's got to be done with, and I know Trump gets that. The auto pen thing is over. No more of that.
Well, Mark Lynch, I really appreciate you coming on. But while I have you here,
Sure.
Just kind of winding things down, you got any big plans for Pride Month? So it's June the 2nd, and everybody's girding up their loins. Can we get through this? Can we survive yet another month where the radical left just celebrates pride and sexual, sexual debauchery? Interestingly enough, I was reading in the book of Ezekiel, I think, and I've got it pulled up I was going to cover this later in the program, and it references Sodom and Gomorrah and why they were destroyed. And they weren't just destroyed for their sexual immorality. They were also destroyed for being haughty and prideful. They were so flagrant and prideful. They weren't even trying to hide their sin. They were so prideful about it. So it's not a coincidence. There's spiritual significance, the fact that the LGBT enclave talks about having pride in their sexual proclivities.
Absolutely. Pride comes before the fall, right? And we're seeing that in Lindsey Graham's campaign, where his stuff is just flushing. I don't think he can stop himself from spiraling down to hit bottom. But I mean, it's just again another indicator of where our country's been. While we've all kind of allowed it, you know, one of the pastors one time was saying, "I'm so tired of hearing God's in charge, God's in charge, God's in charge." He said, "We all know God is in charge, but in Genesis and then in the verses of Matthew 18:18, God says, 'I will loose what you loose and I will bind what you bind.' It is up to we the people to take this country back. We've got to get back to God first, and that's my platform. God is the most important foundational cornerstone of everything through his son Jesus. That's how this country was founded, and our Constitution works with a moral society that believes in God and follows the one true God, our Creator. And without him, we get off into all these things and the woke agenda, LGBTQ plus, DEI, Pride Month. That's, crazy. We had rainbow flags all over the world at our national embassies in every foreign country. We had red, white, yellow, blue, pink flood lamps at the Capitol that Obama put up. That's very prideful in our face that we're going to do these things. I would pray and implore all Americans to stand up against it, speak out in love, but with a firm no. We're not going to accept that in our schools, outside, anywhere in any business we work for. We can quit those kind of companies and go work for companies that support liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness, right? We need to support American principles, America first. And that doesn't go along with what this country was founded on. It's just disgusting, sickening, and just a complete slap in God's face for our country to put up with anything called Pride Month. So I don't want to give it any attention, and it's just a laughing thing, but it's sad, Yeah. Maybe I could have been deceived and thought being gay was the way to go. But thank God I'm not.
Yeah, well, there's a kind of a counter revolution. We've got a lot of people that are declaring this month Biblical Marriage Month instead, and they're just posting their wedding photos online.
There you go. I love that.
There's
Amen.
a lot. The people are definitely trying to take back the month. Mark Lynch, appreciate you. Want to have you back on the program soon. Want to remind everybody that if you want to support your campaign to try to retire Lindsey Graham, you go to lynchforsenate.com. You can also follow you on X, Mark Lynch SC. Mark, we appreciate it, sir. God bless you, and we'll do it again soon.
God bless you. Thank you, Paul, for what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to check in with our good friend Mike Lindell, the pillow salesman, who I also know we need to pray for because he's being persecuted in court. I understand. I was perusing Lindell TV the other day, and I saw that I think they were streaming part of the trial, in fact, this morning. But anyway, we're going to check in with our good friend Mike Lindell, and we'll be back here in just a moment. Oh, that's the wrong one. Here it is.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Life can be pretty unpredictable, filled with good days and not so good days. And sometimes, the only difference between the two is your level of preparedness. The Jace case lets you be better prepared for whatever comes your way. It contains antibiotics and other prescription medications so that you aren't caught unprepared. With a Jace case, you are able to get your prescription medication before the unpredictable happens, allowing you to turn those not so good days into great ones. Go to Jace.com now and get your own Jace case.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. It's great to talk to Mark Lynch. Want to remind everybody this portion of the program brought to you by Red 5 Health. Go to red5health.org/Paul to learn about the healing power of red light therapy, and we'll tell you about the scientifically proven power of red light here in just a little bit. But anyway, we got a great rest of the show for you. I want to tie a bow around this Ukraine stuff. Donald Trump being undermined. That's exactly what I mean. Being completely undermined. Assuming that it's true that he did not know about this attack against Russia. It is interesting, though. He did have that Truth Social last week talking about how many times he'd held off. It seemed to indicate how many times he'd held off attacks like this deep inside of Russia. But now everybody's just kind of waiting. Okay, what's Russia going to do? Are they going to try to use their hypersonic missiles? Are they going to bomb Kiev? What are they going to do? And there's been a lot of ignorance out there about how dangerous it is that they destroyed planes that are designed to carry nuclear payloads. And there's been a lot of people online talking about how, and this is a continuation of what has happened ever since the war began, that Russia's military is somehow inept and nothing to worry about, and like the third world military in that movie Iron Eagle, that it's just nothing. And that's what they tried to do since the war began. You heard things about, the Russians, they can't do it. They can't even take Ukraine. And it was this, because it just goes to show you the assumption, the goal is that Putin wanted to conquer Kiev, and the fact that he hasn't done it is still used as evidence that Russia is actually a paper tiger, if you will. But one of the ignorant assertions out there, people are making fun of the fact that Russia had the planes in the open, these valuable nuclear assets that are just in the open for all to see. And they people were saying, okay, how stupid of the Russians to do something like that. But this is what people don't understand. For decades, this is Richard over on X. Somebody named Richard says, for decades, treaties kept nukes in check. Bombers had to be out in the open, silos sealed, so nobody could pull off a surprise strike. It was a thin line stopping World War III. Zelensky shattered it all in one move. He threw out the rules, erased decades of stability, and threw us right back into Cold War chaos. Anyone who helped make this happen isn't just reckless, they're a danger to the entire planet, Lindsey Graham. And people actually celebrate this, completely out of their minds. Yeah, people like Lindsey Graham celebrating it, people like Mark Levin giddy about this. What did Mark Levin say? Congratulations to our Ukrainian friends. And I honestly think, and I will reiterate this, if you want peace in the Middle East, you really want peace in Ukraine and between Russia, because if you have peace and you have the normalized relations with Russia that the United States has said they want, Rubio as well has said that, if you get that, then you can't really go to war with Iran. So people like Mark Levin, who have never met a Middle East war that they don't like, if you want to go to war in the Middle East, you know that peace between Russia and Ukraine works against your Middle East war fantasies. At least that's kind of the way I see things. I think you're going to have, again, peace in both places, or you're not going to have peace anywhere. But the idea that if this does continue, these wars are just going to be contained in their regions, I think is also a fiction. I do think they'll spread. At least we should. Is there anybody out there, even in the media, that will even in the mainstream media, that even says that? No, they all think it's 2003 again, from what I can tell. So Colonel Towner Watkins writes, "This is NATO attacking Russia. The Ukrainian military are not capable of any of this without NATO intel, satellites, etc. The CIA set up shop in Ukraine in 2014 to murder innocent civilians in the east, to bait Russia in just like they did in AFG in the 70s and 80s. The international syndicate has wanted Russia for a very long time and are using Ukraine to destabilize it." Last week, folks, in that Martin Armstrong article that we read, Martin Armstrong claims that James Comey threw him in prison because he was approached to invest $1 billion to bring about regime change in Russia. Said that if you invest the billion, you'll get $10 billion back. They're going to strip Russia of all of their resources in the ground, minerals, that sort of thing. They're going to run everything through the New York Stock Exchange, and that your $1 billion investment for regime change will be, will yield you $10 billion. Martin Armstrong claims he said no, and then the SEC came for him. Then they held him in contempt of court for 7 years. James Comey was the New York attorney at the time. Anyway, the idea that people have been after Russia, still one of the largest land masses that's kind of untapped and sparsely populated left in Europe, and so I think there's something to this. So then Brian Cates, Draw and Strike, says, this is very true. NATO is not what many of you have been programmed to believe it is. It is not protecting Europe from Russia. It's literally trying to implement a plan of the evil globalist cult oligarchs to kick off a very profitable World War III. Again, got to ask yourself the question, anytime you talk about NATO, what is NATO? What was NATO? NATO was designed, a treaty organization designed, a defensive pact designed to protect Christian Europe from godless communists. Who are the godless communists now? They're European. They're the people in Germany. They're not the people. They're the leadership in Germany. They're the leadership in the UK. Throwing people in jail for praying outside of abortion clinics. Throwing people in jail. I think then there's Ireland throwing a teacher in jail for refusing to use the pronouns to call the kids what they refusing to lie, essentially. These are the values of Europe now. They have gone full totalitarian freak, if you will. So, and here's this was one of the videos of one of these Russian planes, and I guess the drone zeroes in on it. This says this claim is it's a Tu-95 nuclear bomber. Russia just has 47 of them. Its 4 engines can carry huge payloads. Here it pauses and targets the fuel tank, according to this, and then it exploded. It's just incredible. Oh yeah, here's the trend. Okay, we can change topics now. Before we go any further, though, I do want to tell you about Redvive Health and the great folks over at redvivehealth.org /Paul. That's redvivehealth.org /Paul. The healing power of light, ladies and gentlemen. Red light for your health. I'm going to continue talking about these great devices because of what they've done for me. I sat in front of my machine this morning to supercharge my cells, to reduce inflammation, but really just to wake up and have energy, because the near-infrared light on these machines penetrates and stimulates the mitochondria of your cell. You've got the red light, and you can toggle between both of them, so you could do just the red light or just the near-infrared light, or you could just do both, which is recommended that you sit 6 to 12 inches in front of these panels. So the red light and the near-infrared light, those are two separate wavelengths. Now, normally, they're naturally emitted by the sun. Have you seen some of these videos of how weird the sun looks with this supposed Canadian dust storm or Saudi Arabian dust storm? Anyway, I digress. The red light is absorbed by your skin, leading to enhanced skin health because it produces more collagen. which is anti-aging. So any ladies out there want to look younger, instead of putting Botox in your face, which is a toxin, maybe try red light therapy. Then the near-infrared light penetrates deeper into the body, reaching your bones, your muscles, your tissues, and even your organs. This is a way to feel better. This is a way to look better. And until you try it, you're not going to believe it. Let me say that again. Until you try it, you're not going to believe it. I want you to go to redvivehealth.org/Paul or call 866-726-8483. That's 866-726-8483. Keep in mind there's 0% financing available, 0% interest financing available, and you even have a 60-day money-back guarantee. You're not going to use it because you're not going to send this thing back. So do this now. Support the program, as well as get you a clinical strength technology in your own home that Big Pharma doesn't want you to know about. All right, back to this. And we want to thank we love Red Vive, and I love telling you guys about Red Vive. So here we go. It's June 2nd. We're at the beginning of Pride Month, and some people are saying, you know what? Maybe we should just say, what if we just celebrated biblical marriages during the month of June? Instead of getting all worked up about, these parades that are going to be happening, and they are going to happen, and decency laws are going to be ignored. June is the month out of all months where decency laws that are already on the books just get completely ignored. Decency laws, the ones that say that you can't be nude in public, those completely ignored in the month of June. June is the all-time high where decency laws that are already on the books just get ignored. Cops don't arrest people for being naked in front of children. If the cops did, they would be heroes. Hear me. If cops did, you would be heroes. But do you have a prosecutor that has your back? Will they be prosecuted under decency laws? If a prosecutor did do that, they'd be heroes. They'd be heroes to restore some sense of normalcy to this country that says you can't be naked or half naked in front of kids because it's obscene, it's lewd, and we have standards, or we used to. There's a reason. The whole thing with strip clubs, right? Strip clubs are something that you do in a club, indoors, away from children. But June rolls around, and you've got naked men on top of fire trucks going down Main Street with kids in the. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So I would challenge the law enforcement. They actually have a duty to protect kids, whether the kid is there with a LGBTQ RSTLNE, would you like to buy a Val affirming parent or not? Okay, so Matthew Everhart saying that June should be celebrate biblical marriage month, and so there's just a flurry of folks. Joshua Hames, happy biblical marriage month. Just a reminder, marriage is between one man and one woman. Anything else isn't a marriage, it's a mirage. He's exactly right. And then we've got the Wasson Watch Company writes, happy biblical marriage month. So if you're in the market for a watch, you need to check out this company that has a fear of the Lord. A fear of the Lord wants to abolish abortion. The watch company that knows what time it is. Fear the Lord, abolish abortion. June is biblical marriage month. This would be a company, that you would want to buy a watch from, I suspect. Listeners of the Millstone Report, anyway. And no, they are not a sponsor of the show or anything. Did you know that there are two sexes and they were made by God? Genesis 1:27 says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. Every human being who has ever lived and will ever live is either male or female. They are born that way. They can't change. You can't change. Feeling like you're the opposite sex or saying you are or pretending you are doesn't change it. This is a basic truth. It's biological, mathematical, verifiable. No one can change it. Solo Deo Gloria. Biblical marriage month. And we got a nice little chromosome photo here versus XX versus XY. Happy biblical marriage month. Another one. June, another one from Everhard posting, I guess, a wedding photo. June is biblical marriage month. Flood the feed with wholesome pictures of loving Christian marriages. Hebrews 13:4. Comment with your favorite wedding pic or post. Post your own. Then we got more from this Wasson Watch Company. Listen to this.
I just wanted to remind you that the rainbow belongs to God, belongs to Jesus Christ, who's the King. He's the Lord. It doesn't belong to homosexuals. It doesn't belong to sexual deviants. It doesn't belong to the LGBTQ movement. It belongs to the Savior of the world, to the Almighty God of the universe, who is King. That's our rainbow, and we're taking it back. Jesus Christ is King.
Yeah, again, so that was
Hey guys, Paul Brown here with Wasson.
Paul Brown from Wasson Watch Company. And then he has another one here. We've got this, we've got June. They want June to be Biblical Marriage Month. But we still have some issues. Yesterday, the Major League Baseball X account posted about Pride. Everyone's game, hashtag Pride, and they've got the rainbow behind the MLB man on the logo there. Josh Dawes correctly says, gross, delete this. So we still have this. I was talking to a friend last night at church about this, specifically having to do with the different sports leagues that have tried to kind of force the rainbow down their players' throats. And the biggest problem that they had with that is they had kind of went fine with everybody else except hockey. You remember that it was the hockey players, specifically the ones who were from Eastern Orthodox faith or Eastern European countries like Russia, that just said absolutely not. Like, are you crazy? And this is going to, if we don't run out of time here, we got about 12 minutes, but this is kind of a reoccurring theme. The longer you stay immersed in cultures that are descending into wickedness at lightning speed, even if you are a righteous person, you're going to be affected by it. And if you're not a righteous person, then you really will be affected by it, because there are obviously different levels of wickedness being expressed. But it just was interesting how people on those hockey teams that were from a different culture had no problem rejecting the LGBT, whereas American or Canadian hockey players probably wasn't even a question, wasn't even a thought. I'm not talking about all of them, but versus American baseball players or football players and that sort of thing, right? It just goes to show you that our culture is making it a lot easier to just shut up and say nothing because you don't really want to say anything because you agree with it. Aaron McIntyre retweeting the Satanic Temple over on X on June the 1st. They wrote, "Hail Pride, wishing everyone a safe and happy Pride Month." They've got rainbow balloons with the statue of Baphomet, of course, and they say Hail Pride. So this is satanic, according to. We're going to dive into that here in just a moment. Then we have, of course, Sesame Street on June 1st. On our street, everyone is welcome. Together we build a world where every person and family feels loved and respected for who they are. Happy Pride Month. And they've got the puppet hands, different colors. By the way, I saw where the puppeteer for Elmo was charged with some kind of indecent behavior with a child. But they've got these different puppet hands that make up a rainbow. Pretty sick stuff. But then we have stuff like this. The WLT report claims 2 days ago that a Democrat city has canceled LGBTQ Pride or an event there due to low interest. Who wrote this piece? Kaylee. So Kaylee says the tide is turning in a very clear sign that our culture is finally shifting away from the woke LGBTQ nonsense that has been so rampant in society these past several years. A liberal city has just canceled an upcoming Pride event. Boise, Idaho, was forced to scrap plans for their kickoff event to Pride Month due to low turnout. Idaho News CBS affiliate Boise Pride season kickoff canceled due to low attendance. So that's a CBS affiliate reporting that. They go on, the Pride season kickoff initially scheduled for June 6th has been canceled due to insufficient attendance despite strong online enthusiasm. The event was intended to enhance LGBTQ visibility and community connection in June, serving as a precursor to the main Boise Pride celebration in September. Organizers expressed their commitment to expanding Pride in Boise, emphasizing the need for active community participation to bring new events to life. We know the desire for more Pride programming is real, blah, 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 blah. This goes on. It's unclear whether the insufficient attendance refers to not selling enough tickets or not getting enough funding from sponsors. Let's hope it's both. Let's hope it's both. And that's where we kind of end, or kind of go into our last topic. It's still related to this. Smash Bales posting a picture, a cartoon image of Lot fleeing the city of Sodom and Gomorrah as fire and brimstone rain down. And Smash Bill says that this was the first Pride Month. So we're going to see stuff like this all through June. So I kind of wanted to dive in, and coincidentally, this is exactly what I've been studying in the last 24 hours. Not coincidentally, I guess. So if you actually go to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, we're talking about Genesis chapter 19, where in the previous chapter, Abraham and the Lord and two angels have been having a conversation. They've also had a really good meal, by the way. And, of course, then you get to chapter 19, and so the Lord is determined. The Lord says, look, I've heard about Sodom and Gomorrah. I've seen what's going to happen. I'm going to go down there and destroy it. Abraham says, well, my brother's down there. I'm paraphrasing, but can we go rescue him? After we have the kind of a back and forth, are there 50 righteous people there? Are there 40 righteous people? Will you spare it? So he wants his brother. So the Lord stays behind, because the Lord in this instance would be considered a Christophany. This is a pre-incarnate Jesus Christ who is not going to be around that much sin without totally destroying the city. So the Lord stays behind as the two angels go on this rescue mission. And the two angels come to Sodom in the evening, and then they see Lot there sitting at the gate of Sodom, and they have a pleasant interaction. They go into the city. And it says, but before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surrounded the house. And they called Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them. Now, this word know means sexually. Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have 2 daughters who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Now, interestingly enough, this was brought up the other night. Fascinating that Lot was just going to move, in the previous chapters in Genesis, Lot was just going to kind of move closer to the city. Now he's in the city, and he's been around a bunch of really debauched people, and now this guy, who's Abraham's brother, this guy is now, his moral compass is so warped and has shifted so much that he's now saying, hey, what did you just take my daughters? Think about that. Think about how messed up that is, and also think about the fact that the Lord saved Lot anyway. But the people around the door said, stand back. And they said, this fellow came to sojourn, and he has become the judge, talking about Lot. Now you're going to deal worse with you than with them. Then they pressed hard against the man, Lot, and drew near to break the door down. But the men reached out their hands and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door, and they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great, so that they wore themselves out groping for the door. So these men in Sodom, they wanted to have sexual relations with these angels. They wanted to know them in the same way where the Bible talks about how Adam knew Eve and they begot Seth, or begot Cain and Abel. But if we really want to dive into this, because there's some in the woke church world that want to downplay the sin of homosexuality in Sodom and Gomorrah. But there's other people that quite don't understand the totality of the sin. So if you actually go to the book of Ezekiel chapter 16, and you go to verse 49, did I just miss it? Let me see, where did it go? So Ezekiel 16:49 says, "Behold, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess of food and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy. They were haughty and did an abomination before me, so I removed them when I saw it." There's a lot here. There's a little bit more context as to what was going on in Sodom. Definitely an abomination, being haughty, but being prideful, being so boastful in their sin they didn't even feel the need to hide their sin. Think about that. Didn't even feel the need to hide their sin. And then, of course, you have to ask, I mean, what a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that we have this same prevalent sin with us now. And they're using this concept of pride, being unashamed about it and flaunting it, having no shame whatsoever. But just to kind of top everything off, if you want another Sodom and Gomorrah reference, if you want to kind of look at what the Bible says about it in its totality, you can go to Jude, verse 7. Jude only has one chapter. Jude, verse 7 says, "Just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, which likewise indulged in sexual immorality and pursued unnatural desire, serve as an example by undergoing a punishment of eternal fire." So it's certainly clear. You know, there are woke churches today that try to say that the only type of there is no prohibition of sodomy in the Bible. They try to say that we've misinterpreted it somehow, and that's clearly not the case. If you look at all these verses that we just read, it's pretty clear what was going on. And I want you to think about it for a second. Isn't it kind of wild that two strangers walk into a town and the men who are engaged in sodomy immediately want to know them, immediately want to experience this with them? It's very animalistic. This is what it kind of comes across as. And so, you know, you can look these statistics up in the CDC, for example, because they are there. But I saw where the Jolly Brawler cited a study by Bell Weinberg that says 83% of sodomites have had more than 50 sexual partners. This study goes on to say 43% of sodomites have had more than 500 sexual partners. 28% of sodomites have had more than 1,000 sexual partners. 79% of sodomites claim that the over half of their sexual partners are complete and total strangers, except for the whole sodomizing thing, right? No longer a stranger. And then he says, "Happy Pride Month to the most predatory, promiscuous group in the nation." I guess when I saw those statistics, and having just recently, through Providence, having read the account in Genesis 18 and Genesis 19, I thought to myself, wow, I mean, you hear it, nothing is new under the sun, but it's just interesting that the absolute gargantuan nature of the homosexual appetite that you can kind of see in the biblical account there with Sodom. And so by the way, it's not just in Genesis. If you go to I guess that was in Judges, and that was actually that wasn't homosexual sex, so I guess that wouldn't be the case. But very similar stories there. I mean, it can show you that sexual immorality in general is terrible and creates monsters out of all men. But anyway, it's something to think about as we go into this Pride Month, as we gird up our loins to try to survive it. No pun intended. And so maybe it is good to be proactive and just say, hey, yeah, you know what? Maybe June is Biblical Marriage Month, and we celebrate that and try to rise above it. You know, what Mark Lynch was saying I thought was really good, that you know, obviously we have to stand for truth. We also have to love our neighbor, and that's exactly right. He's exactly right about that. But we also, and I'm not saying he was saying this, but we also have got to make sure that, you know, the greatest two commandments, love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. You got to love the Lord your God and love your neighbor. You can't just love your neighbor and tell them that their sin is okay, because then you're promoting a lie, then you're not loving the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and understanding. So that's all the time that we have for this edition of the Millstone Report. Unless I am providentially hindered, I'm going to be back here delivering you the news tomorrow And I hope everybody out there enjoys the rest of your Monday. God bless everybody out there watching, and we'll see you soon.
The very foundation of the Christian faith is based